Happy New Year from me, Councillor James, to you and your families, from my family to yours. Here we are, we've finally arrived at 2021. Today is the 2nd. I was going to make this, or planned to make this video yesterday on New Year's Day, but I was having such a nice time with my family, despite all of the restrictions at the minute here in Wales, that I just ran out of time. I think, excuse my stomach if you might, stomach rumbling. So yes, Happy New Year. I'm delighted that we're here and that there's some, hopefully there's some end in sight for us, with news, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, of the Oxford vaccine, isn't it? Yes. So the second vaccine available in the UK, I think it's been approved. I'm not sure it's actually been started production yet in any sort of great numbers. I saw an interview with the CEO of was it AstraZeneca, who are going to produce it, and I think he was more or less sort of saying that they hadn't started producing in great numbers as yet, but then it's only just been approved, hasn't it? So cross fingers. What Mr. Hancock said, which I can't help take with a pinch of salt, to put it politely, and Boris Johnson said again, which I can't help take with a pinch of salt, unfortunately, that it would be sort of, rolled out in massive numbers immediately, and there'd be sort of millions of doses, single doses, I think, along with the existing vaccine, given to frontline workers and obviously in nursing homes and care homes, as soon as possible. I hope that's true. I hope that's right. I hope that's correct. I hope that really does happen. Of course, excuse me. But looking at promises given by the government over the past 8-9 months, if you cast your minds back to the promises over PPE and millions of face masks and NHS sort of level PPE that was supposed to be ordered on its way. Well, it sort of, I think in the end the newspapers were calling it Never Neverland, weren't they? But there'd be sort of daily promises, and it just never happened, did it? For a very long time, it seemed like. And then we had the same thing with the testing. There just wasn't the testing sort of kits capacity, testing points that could sort of deal with what we needed, and that never really got to the levels that we needed, I think. And then we were then straight on again. Lots of daily promises about that, which never sort of really materialised. Then the same thing with track and trace. Same promises, same problems, problems. And now we've got to this point, which we've all been waiting for, of course. And I think the problem is we're all sitting there thinking we all desperately want this, and we want it to be, and need it to be done. Not what we need it. We need it to be done ASAP. All of us, especially the most vulnerable, in vulnerable age categories and health categories, frontline workers, NHS staff, and what else. But someone told me the police aren't part of the frontline worker thing. I don't know if that's true or not. Anyway, maybe you can tell me if that's true. Or not, I was quite surprised to hear that. But anyway, so yeah, it'd be sort of fourth time lucky, wouldn't it? Really. So if I'm going to believe what someone's promised 3 times before, failed on spectacularly, but then why would But then why would I believe what they say for the fourth time? So I think that's where a lot of us are at, aren't we? In our minds, unfortunately. It's where I'm at in my mind, unfortunately, despite the fact, as I say, we all want it, we all need an end to this, and that's the news. It's the news we've been waiting for, isn't it? It's the vaccine. So it's good news, but then when? When is the question? Is the golden question now? Okay, we're just out of New Year, we're just out of Christmas, but I mean, the scientists making this stuff, the the body making sure it's safe for us, the government, they haven't been sort of completely stopped to go off and have their Christmas lunch and their their New Year's party, have they? They've been working on it obviously throughout. So let's see what happens there. I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope what we're being told is the truth. That there will be millions of doses available within weeks, and out there and being given to the people that need them. So yes, I hope my cynicism is misplaced this time, but I fear not. Let me get a sup of coffee before I continue. I've always been told off for slurping hot drinks from my family. They're trying to watch some telly. You get that? Will you stop slurping hot drinks? I'm trying to listen to this. I'm thinking it's hot. I can't. I'm trying not to burn my mouth. Anyway, I was reflecting today, and again, similar sort of, where we are now, and 2021, 2020 is behind us, which is, I think, most of us are very happy about. As you'll see, my hair is, I've not been able to get to a barber's to have this cut for nearly 9 months. No, 9 months. It will be 9 months. So I'm pretty desperate to get this all lopped off. So do forgive my sort of my Fabio-esque hair. That's why I'm wobbling the camera now for the mustache. But I was thinking today about the future now, and what all this has sort of done to me. I know to me and my immediate family members, particularly self-isolating for all this time because of our health conditions. Nigh on 9 months. I've not been out of this house unless it's to go and get food, basically, or things like that. Well, food and drink, or medicines, or trip to the doctors. But again, I think that's only been once or twice because I don't really want to do that. And I've missed hospital appointments and all sorts because I don't want to risk going to hospital for outpatients things for nearly 9 months. By the time, as I say, this vaccine's available, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be 2 more months, 3 more months, more than that, 4 more months. I have no idea. So it's probably very well going to be end up being a year more or less that I'm sort of stuck. I've been stuck indoors, and I realise that's probably going to be the same for many, many, many people. Perhaps you watching this now, and of course that's had an effect on the way you sort of view life, think about things, think about the world. With the turning of a new year, an old year into the new year, certainly gave me a bit of optimism. And that's what I was thinking about. What I was thinking about today, and I actually, I'll give you, rather than sort of do what I usually do, which is sort of give my views on sort of local top news topics or national news topics and things. As a community councillor here, in lovely Rhyl in sunny North Wales. Windy North Wales at the minute, of course, as well in January. I thought I'd sort of talk about, well, to tell you a story really, if you've got time. If you want to put up with me, 10 minutes already. So if you want to put up with me for another sort of 10 minutes, if we're trying to keep it down to 10 minutes. Today I watched too much telly because I've got nothing else to do really, apart from read, watch telly, practice my piano and things or whatever. So that's more or less what I get to do. I try and do a little bit of exercise, but I can't really because there's just space. It's a small terrace house, I can't make too much noise because of the neighbours. Very thin walls. But I was watching a little clip today on YouTube, often on YouTube, and it was. Do you remember Time Team? It used to be on TV years ago. I used to love Time Team. I mean, this was when I was. Well, I think it started when I was about 18, Time Team, sort of early 90s, 93, 94, something like that. So I would have been about 18, 19. I think I started watching it almost from the beginning, all the way through the 90s, into the early 2000s, and into the 2000s. I mean, it's not been on telly for years now. But I used to love it. I don't know why I loved it. I've always loved history. But I used to love watching it. And it was a big part of my week, sort of sitting down with my mum and family members in the living room and watching Time Team on a Sunday, sort of around tea time and that. And, it was a nice sort of bit of the week that I knew would be there. And I'd enjoy it. And at the time, for much of the 90s, into the early 2000s, I was having, a bit like the year we've just had, I was having a horrible time, really, in many respects. Similar sorts of, I was virtually, because I'd left school in 1990 with, no GCSEs, no qualifications. I could barely read or write to any level that was of any use to me or anybody. I didn't know what on earth to do. My plan was to go into the army. After a year of the army deciding if they wanted me, they finally decided they didn't, and I was completely lost. I didn't know what to do. Like a lot of young people, still here now. You don't have the options. Even if unless you've done very, very well academically, you just don't really have the options. And I didn't. So, at the time, much of the time, I was on and off the dole. I think I had a start on YTS, if you remember that, years ago. But I was on and off the dole. I was into sort of agency work, factory work, which was sort of piecemeal, underemployed, very low paid. This is before national minimum wage came in, and then after that. So, half the time I was looking for work and unemployed and on the dole, which I hated. Because, of course, after prolonged periods, it's like it's been this past year, you're sort of stuck inside, you lose focus, you lose hope, depression sets in, the mental and physical knock-on effect of that takes hold. And it's just horrible, especially a younger person, it's really horrible. And I just couldn't see a future, to be honest. It was just unemployment then, what I consider basically to be, pardon my French, sort of piss take employment. It didn't help me. It didn't pay me enough, and it wasn't long enough to help me and my family. And then back on the dole looking for work again. So this was the pattern, unfortunately, throughout my sort of 20s and 30s during the 1990s and early 2000s. So yeah, I'd often be at home watching the Time Team and things like that, and thinking, "Oh, I wish I could," rather than having to, go through what I'm going through now, and all this, just hating my life really. I wish I could be there doing something, I'd enjoy and something productive, and I wish I was sort of, part of something like that, it was just a bit of sort of fancy in my head, and then stop and back to real life. And I hadn't thought about that for years, to be honest. But I saw this little sort of they're doing time team sort of down memory lane sort of YouTube interviews of people who used to be on it, and I saw one today, a few hours ago. And I was watching it, and it brought all that back to me in that time, and watching, I think, and me remembering, thinking, I wish I was sort of, doing that sort of stuff, and it'd be wonderful to have gone to university and done history and archaeology and all that, and sort of going around the country and around the world doing all this sort of stuff, and finding out about sort of history and things people have lost or not known about for millennia. All interested me really. But at that point, I wasn't even I wasn't even in college. I tried to go to college after I'd left school, but I was rejected. I won't get into that. I was rejected because they just didn't think I was up to it academically, basically. My reading and writing skills, basically. So I was sort of thinking about that today, and remembering all of that, and how depressed I was, and this wasn't just like the last 9 months, 9 months to a year. This was year after year after year after year, and it sort of shaped who I am. It shaped who I am. I take nothing for granted. I know how bad it can be. But I was also reflecting today on how, without really thinking about it, my life's completely changed. In 10, 15 years? The last 10, 15 years, that was my life. It's completely changed in almost every aspect, except for I'm still potless. I'm still potless. I'll speak to you now. I've had to go back onto universal credit because of the effects of the last year on just my health and things, and mental health and physically and everything. I've had to pause what I've been doing for the past year or more, which is my PhD, my doctorate. But I was sitting there today watching this thing. I was thinking, here I am now, in the middle of a doctorate. I've had to pause for now, but in the middle of a doctorate. And I remember all those years I couldn't even get into college. I could see no future, no hope at all. Everything I was trying to do just wasn't working, year after year. And it's just I hadn't really thought about that before. And I thought, well, that applies to now, doesn't it? Because after this year, for many of us, and for me again, it's hard to believe anything's gone. It seems it's hard to believe anything's going to actually change, even though it's a new year, it's 2021, and we know about the vaccine. It's just hard to believe things are going to get back to normal, isn't it? It's really hard to sort of imagine that, even though we all want that desperately. But I thought, well, things do change, don't they? I hadn't really thought about it. Things do change because, as I say, that was my mindset, my belief for the best part of a decade or more after leaving school and everything. 15 years, maybe 17 years, something like that. Was like that, Groundhog Day. With just nothing really to look forward to, or nothing to, no sort of goals to sort of stimulate me or reach, and brassic all the time, on the bread line or below it, which 10 or 15 years of that, believe me, is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, to be honest. But here I am, I'm sitting here, as I say, in the middle of a doctorate, and the past 10, 15 years, and it's completely unplanned. I hadn't planned this. Is another strange thing. I hadn't planned this. So life sort of tends to happen when you're not really planning for the big things to happen. Isn't it strange? It is strange. I'd never really reflected on it before. I'm sitting here now, and I've got a bachelor's in science, computing degree. I've got a law degree. I've got a master's in sociology, social policy. I'm halfway through doing my PhD in sociology, social policy. I'm community council, which I've been very proud and loved doing for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years next May. I'm actually considering running for the Assembly elections as an independent next May as well. If I think about my life 10, 15 years ago, that's just all that's fantasy land, utter fantasy land. And I was trying to think at what point that's all sort of started without me really realising it. And I suppose it started again out of the blue. So this is what I'm saying about. I'm trying to sort of relate that to sort of what's happening now. Things can just happen without you really sort of realising they've happened. But I remember we'd been in Stafford for a bit to be near family because we didn't have any family up here. Basically, it was just us. So we'd gone down to Stafford for a bit of sort of family sort of support and things, from 2002 to 2007, I think it was. And then we moved back because grandchildren in the family here had started to be born. And my mum, who was about to be a grandparent, wanted to be near her, obviously, as she would, near her new grandchildren growing up. And so we'd moved back. And in the time I'd been in Stafford, the first half, again, had been this cycle of unemployment, trying to find piecemeal work and that. But then the last 2 years, as a mature student, I'd finally been accepted into college. And I don't know how, I'd sort of fallen into, again, which is a strange thing, into childcare. I'd been training and working as a male nursery assistant in a very posh nursery actually, and then a creche at the hospital there. And over that time, I loved the job. It was a fantastic job. It was one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, physically and mentally. I mean, I was going from a house where there were no kids going in in the mornings to a room full of sort of 20, 25 toddlers, which was a shock to the system for the first 2 or 3 months. But after I'd sort of got used to all that, I'd loved it, and I'd trained, I'd got my qualifications, I was happy, I was set. It was, I thought, okay, I wasn't expecting to do this. It's a bit out of left field, but I'm good at this. I'm comfortable with this. I like doing this. It's enjoyable and it's productive. Productive thing to do. So anyway, we moved back to Rill. To my again, talk about low points. To my utter shock and depression, and a real depression, I realised that soon after I was applying for jobs in childcare here, because I hadn't trained here, so people didn't know me here in the sort of childcare settings and things as they did back there in Stafford, of course, and trained and everything. And I didn't have a connection with sort of college and my tutors and things as I did in Stafford because obviously I hadn't done it here. People were very reluctant. So I don't know if that's still the case now. Maybe if you were very reluctant to take on a male, even though I was qualified like everybody else, even though I'd gone to the same, you have to go through all the same criminal records checks as everybody else does, male or female. People are still reluctant to take on a male nursery nurse, basically. Nursery practitioner, they used to call it. It's a mentality thing, I think, I at the time. So I quickly realised it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to, after all the years of training, doing all that everybody else had to do and, proving myself and everything else, for no good reason that I could see my career that had sort of just begun was done over. Out of my hands, it was done. No one was going to hire me, basically. So that was the summer of 2007, and I just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do then. What am I going to do? I was in my early 30s, maybe early to mid 30s. Didn't know what to do. I thought I'm going to have to go back to college then before college sort of, the applications sort of close and things. But what the hell am I going to do? I don't know. I had no idea. So I applied to Landrethlow here in Rill. I think it was to do a mechanics course, but and this is where sort of I suppose this sort of journey into university where I am now sort of started. Totally out of the blue, I applied. Someone phoned me up, who I thought was from the mechanics course, a lady, and it was a gentleman first, and he said he asked me about myself and why I wanted to know, and he basically said that the course here was really heavily oversubscribed applications wise because all the younger men and things around here again were very limited on options who wanted to do the course, a very popular course and that. And he said, well, what have you done before? And I said, well, I've done this and that, and as I said, I've done a little bit of MVQs in computers years ago and things. And he said, oh, well, have you thought about doing that at college, but at foundation degree, as a foundation degree? And I sort of laughed. I said, he must be joking. He must be joking. At best, I've done MVQ level sort of 3. I can't do a foundation degree. But he just obviously he didn't sort of take that really. And the next thing I know, I'm being phoned up by the lady that runs the course at over in Ross-on-Sea, who wanted to meet me, and I thought this is a waste of time, but I'll go. So I took the bus to Ross-on-Sea and I met her, and I thought she's not even going to let me on the course, Well, I wish I hadn't got any qualifications for this sort of thing. But to my surprise, she got home and then she sort of rang me and said, I was on the course if I wanted it, and I was accepted. And as I had nothing else to do really, I was still very sceptical that I thought I'm not gonna last the year. I don't know. I can't do anything at this sort of level. But to my utter surprise, 2 years later I passed the course, passed it all and enjoyed it, and then got a chance to go on to do a top-up year to a full degree at Glyndŵr, and then it all sort of went on from there really. Still been a hell of a struggle. I mean, really, really been a struggle. Before I started sort of after school with sort of hod carrying on a pretty unregulated building site, very small building site, digging ditches for foundations, from the pouring rain and for this sort of time of year, really freezing cold. To this or to that, and teaching myself to sort of read and write and the maths that I never had along the way slowly. It's all just, I suppose, after a long story, cut a long story short, I suppose the message is, what's the message? What's the message, James? As Keith Lemon would say. I suppose the message is, although things feel like nothing is not going to change and things aren't going to get better, or even just be different, and even I'm thinking that, I know from experience it will be. It will change. It will. It will. I've talked about my story. I was thinking the other day. You might be watching as your parent or grandparent or, similar sort of story to mine. But I was thinking the other day. I was thinking my mum. There was one time when my mum wasn't a mum. It was on Christmas Day when you could have one connection with one bubble, couldn't you? So the grandkids came around for an hour on Christmas Day, which was fantastic. But I was standing there thinking, my mum was sort of overjoyed to see them, but I was thinking, there was one time that I won't remember, of course, because I wasn't there, I wasn't around, but my mum wasn't a parent. My mum didn't. There was one time, there was a significant part in her sort of first 20 years of life where she wasn't a parent, didn't expect to be a parent, and life was completely changed from the internet, completely changed. And life changes. And I think we all need to remember. I need to remember that life changes. It will change. It will get better. It will get back to normal. It's just hanging on. You've got to hang on, and it's easier said than done. As I said, I had years of it, and this has been a particularly hard one. But you've got to hang on and hang on and hang on. You've got to, you know, it's all, and it's okay not to be okay. Don't be ashamed that you're not okay. Things aren't okay. Especially being locked in with our family members. Everybody's struggling. Here I am, counsellor James Ball. All this sort of stuff. Hopefully soon enough, going to be Dr. James Ball. All this sort of stuff. So what? I'm still, I'm on universal credit at the minute. I'm penniless. I've been stuck indoors for 9 months with the family that I love, but we're still at each other's bloody throats. We're still all having an argument. That's normal human life. We're all struggling and suffering, to get through this. So we're all the same in that respect. I think we're all sharing the difficulties, even if we don't realise it. We're all sharing the same experience, aren't we? So that's all I've got to say, I suppose. That's 30 minutes already. Try to keep it short. I'll never keep it short. Anyway, Happy New Year. Here's to you. Here's to your family. Here's to success for all of us. Here's to a better future soon for all of us. And take care, and I'll see you next time. Ciao for now.